Interesting case surrounding a Seattle pastor who was arrested a couple of years back for reading the Bible in public. He has now been vindicated. Can you tell us a little bit about this story?
I can. It's really a fitting end to an outrageous situation, Billy. What had happened was the city of Seattle effectively made reading the Bible aloud a crime. And it first occurred on June 24, 2022. I don't know if that date sticks out to you, but that was the date that the U.S. Supreme Court rendered the Dobbs decision. That was a decision that overturned Roe versus Wade. So that there was this huge rally protest going on in downtown Seattle. And Pastor Meineke thought this would be a perfect opportunity to share the gospel. So he took his Bible and he goes out there to read the Bible. He has very earnest pro-life beliefs, but that was not his purpose. He really just wanted to share the gospel. So he turned to the book of John, chapter 1, verse 1, and started reading. But it was not received well. Some protesters started to crowd in around him, started saying some inflammatory, derogatory things, made him feel uncomfortable. So he moved off. He didn't want a conflict, so he moved off a few feet away to a new spot. But then at that spot, some protester grabbed his Bible and started ripping the pages out of it right in front of him. Undeterred, Pastor Meineke retrieved a second Bible and just resumed his reading. And he was able to do that for a while. But that's when Antifa members got involved. And they became physical. They started to pick up Pastor Meineke. He tried to grab a nearby sawhorse to keep them from doing that. But they picked up him and the sawhorse, walked over about a block and a half away, and then just dropped Pastor Meineke on the concrete.
Was he fighting back during this at all? I mean, what was he doing while they're picking him up and literally carrying him blocks away?
He really did not want to interact with them. He was trying to avoid any type of physical altercation. So he tried to grab the sawhorse. He tried to do what he could do. But once they started picking up, he just went with it, and they dropped him. It hurt, as you would expect. It was on concrete. But he started brushing himself off. And at that point, he was thinking, well, maybe I should go home. But he was convicted to stay. So he found another spot, and he started reading the book of John again. But regrettably, some other protesters came up, and one knocked him down. Another grabbed his shoe for some reason. They just grabbed his shoe. And then finally, after all those things, the police arrived. They were in the vicinity the whole time, but they didn't intercede until this point. And this is where it becomes the most disappointing. The police did not come to help Pastor Meineke. Rather, they told him he was the problem. And so at that point, they said, you have to leave. You have to leave the area. You can no longer speak with people. And Pastor Meineke just knew he had a First Amendment right to share his views. And so he wasn't just willing to walk away. He tried to reason with the police officers, but they arrested him. And they held him for several hours in a detaining cell until after the abortion rally had ended, really thwarting his opportunity to share the gospel.
Can I interject for a second to ask a question? Because part of this that sounds very disturbing to me, outside of the free speech part of this, which we'll talk about religious liberty, you had other people physically grabbing a Bible, ripping pages out of it, picking him up, carrying him, dropping him. That would be violence, essentially, in all of those instances, and physical contact. Were any of those people arrested, held accountable, or even talked to by the authorities, as far as you know?
They were not. And that was really disturbing. That all these things happened in front of police officers, and apparently they just let it go, because to our knowledge, no one was even addressed. Certainly no one was arrested. And because the police officers, pursuant to their policy, figured that it was Pastor Meineke that was the problem. And so because of that stance, they only addressed him and him alone.
What was their rationale for arresting him? I mean, on what charge were they essentially holding him?